Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the sky change. The stars that had always been there were now blocked by something much bigger and much scarier. Huge alien ships hung in the black space above Earth like dark clouds before. A storm. Each ship was the size of a city, and there were hundreds of them. "Sir, we're getting a message," said his communications officer, a young woman named Kate Sullivan. Her voice shook as she spoke. "It's coming from all of them at once." Jake nodded. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Ever since the deep space sensors first detected the alien fleet heading toward Earth, the government had tried to keep it secret, but word had spread. Everyone knew they were coming. The question was what they wanted. "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered and showed a creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. It stood 12 feet tall and had eyes that glowed like blue fire. When it spoke, its voice filled the bridge like thunder. "Humans of Earth," the alien said, "I am the arbiter of the hegemony. We have come to offer you a choice. You can join our empire willingly, or you can be destroyed. There is no third option." Jake felt his stomach drop. He looked around the bridge at his crew. They all had the same expression on their faces. Fear mixed with anger. They had hoped the aliens might be friendly, but deep down, they had known this day would come. The arbiter continued speaking. "You have 72 hours to decide. If you choose to join us, you must do 3 things. First, you must kneel before our Supreme Council and accept your place as servants. Second, you must give us all your weapons and technology. Third, you must give us your children so we can teach them proper behavior." Kate Sullivan made a small sound like she was about to be sick. Jake put his hand on her shoulder to steady her. "If you refuse," the arbiter said, "we will turn your planet into dust. We have done this to 47 other worlds. Their people chose pride over life. They are now nothing but memories." The message ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was studying the alien transmission in her lab when the message played. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was sharp as a knife. She had spent her whole life studying alien life, though she had never expected to meet any. "Play it again," she told her assistant, a young man named Bobby. Chun Dot, as the message played for the 3rd time, Lisa noticed something strange. The alien's words were perfect, but there were tiny delays between some of them, almost like the creature was translating from another language in real time. "Bobby, run a frequency analysis on the background noise," she said. While Bobby worked, Lisa thought about what the alien had said. 47 worlds destroyed, billions of people dead because they wouldn't kneel. The aliens called themselves the hegemony, which meant they were rulers. But rulers of what? How big was their empire? "Dr. Carter," Bobby said, "you need to see this." Lisa looked at the screen. Hidden in the background of the alien message were data streams, lots of them. The aliens weren't just talking to Earth. They were talking to hundreds of other worlds at the same time. "They're coordinating something big," Lisa said. "This isn't just about us. They're managing an entire empire." At the same time, Admiral Ben Parker was in the Pentagon War Room, surrounded by generals and scientists. The room was full of screens showing Earth's defenses. It didn't look good. "How many ships do we have?" asked General Pete Johnson. 43 combat vessels," Ben replied. "Most of them are patrol ships. We have maybe 12 that could fight a real battle. And they have at least 2,000 ships that we can see, probably more." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew the math. Earth's entire space fleet wouldn't last 10 minutes against the alien armada. "What about ground defenses?" asked General Johnson. "We have missile batteries on every continent," said Colonel Amy Rodriguez. plus the orbital defense platforms. But if their ships are as advanced as they look, our weapons might not even scratch them. President Claire Thompson entered the room. Everyone stood up, but she waved them back down. I just spoke with the leaders of every major nation, she said. They're all asking the same question. Do we fight or do we surrender? Ben Parker looked at the president. Ma'am, if we fight, we'll probably lose. They have too many ships and their technology is too advanced. And if we surrender, our children disappear. Our people become slaves. Earth becomes just another world in their empire. Claire Thompson was quiet for a long moment. She was a tough woman who had fought her way to the presidency, but this was bigger than anything she had ever faced. There's something else, she said finally. I've been in contact with the other world leaders. None of us want to kneel. The question is whether we can find a way to fight back. In space, Jake Morrison's ship received new orders. All human vessels were to retreat to defensive positions around Earth. It was a smart move, but Jake knew it wouldn't matter. The alien. Ships were too powerful, sir, said Kate Sullivan. I'm picking up chatter from the alien fleet. They're not using any encryption. What are they saying? They're talking about something called the processing. It sounds like they're planning to scan our technology and our biology. They want to know everything about us before they attack. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens weren't just planning to conquer Earth. They were planning to study humans like lab rats. How long until they start? He asked. 6 hours. Sir. Jake looked out at the alien ships. They hung in space like sleeping giants, but he knew they were watching. They were always watching. On Earth, the clock was ticking. 72 hours to decide the fate of humanity. But as Jake Morrison and millions of other humans would soon discover, some choices were easier to make than others. They could kneel and live as slaves, or they could stand and fight for their freedom. For humans, that wasn't really a choice at all. The first day passed like a bad dream. All over Earth, people watched the news and waited for their leaders to make a decision. Some people packed their bags and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The alien ships surrounded the planet. Like a cage, Jake Morrison didn't sleep that night. He stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the alien vessels. They were so big that they blocked out whole sections of stars. Every few hours, small ships would leave the big ones and fly around Earth, scanning everything with bright blue lights. They're mapping us, said Kate Sullivan. She had been working all night, trying to understand what the aliens were doing. Every city, every military base, every ship. They know exactly where everything is. Jake nodded. It made sense. The aliens had done this before, 47 times. They had turned it into a science. On the second day, something unexpected happened. Dr. Lisa Carter was still studying the alien transmission when she made a discovery that changed everything. Bobby, come look at this, she said. Bobby Chun hurried over to her computer. On the screen were lines of code that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. What is it? He asked. I think it's a computer virus, Lisa said. Hidden in the alien message. It's trying to get into our systems. Bobby frowned. But why would they need to hack us if they're just going to destroy us? Lisa smiled for the first time in 2 days. Because they're not going to destroy us. They want to conquer us. And to do that, they need to understand us. She pulled up another screen. Look at this. The virus is trying to access our military networks, our communication systems, even our internet. They want to know everything about how we think and how we fight. So what do? We give them what they want, Lisa said, but not the way they expect. At the Pentagon, Admiral Ben Parker was having the worst day of his life. Every hour brought new reports of alien ships getting closer to Earth. The world's leaders were calling him non-stop. asking for updates he didn't have. "Sir," said Colonel Amy Rodriguez, "we've got a problem. 3 of our ships just lost power. They're floating dead in space." Ben felt his heart sink. "Are the crews okay?" "Yes, sir. But the aliens are scanning the ships. They're learning everything about our technology." General Pete Johnson looked up from his tablet. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Everyone in the room stared at him. "Think about it," Pete said. "If they're scanning our ships, they're not destroying them. That means they want to keep us alive. And if they want to keep us alive, they need to understand us." Ben Parker began to see what Pete was getting at. "You're saying we should let them scan us?" "I'm saying we should control what they scan. Give them information that helps us instead of hurting us." At the same time, President Claire Thompson was meeting with the leaders of every major nation. The meeting was held in a secure bunker deep underground, but everyone knew the aliens could probably see them anyway. "The Chinese are ready to fight," she told the group. "So are the Russians and the Europeans. But we need to be smart about this." The British Prime Minister, a man named George Wilson, spoke up. "What if we pretend to surrender? Buy ourselves some time?" "Time for what?" asked the Japanese representative. "Time to figure out how to hurt them," Claire said. "Dr. Carter's team has found something in their transmission, a weakness we might be able to exploit." The room buzzed with whispers. A weakness in the alien technology? It seemed too good to be true. "What kind of weakness?" asked the German Chancellor. "We don't know yet," Claire admitted. "But Dr. Carter thinks their computer systems aren't as secure as they seem. If we can get a virus into their network." She didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. If they could hack the alien ships, they might have a chance. As the second day ended, Jake Morrison received a message that surprised him. It wasn't from Earth Command or the Pentagon. It was from his old friend Danny Walsh, who worked for a part of the government that officially didn't exist. "Jake," the message said, "I need you to do something crazy. I need you to let the aliens capture one of your ships." Jake read the message 3 times before it sank in. Danny wanted him to sacrifice a ship and its crew to the aliens. It sounded insane, but then he read the rest of the message. "The ship needs to have something special on it, something that will make the aliens very interested. Dr. Carter is working on it now. Trust me, Jake. This is how we fight back." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were good people. They had families back on Earth. How could he ask them to risk their lives on a crazy plan? "Sir," said Kate Sullivan, "you look worried." Jake made a decision. "Kate, I want you to send a message to all ships. Ask for volunteers for a special mission. A dangerous mission." "What kind of mission, sir?" "The kind that might save Earth." On the 3rd day, the alien deadline was only hours away. All over the world, people gathered in churches, mosques, temples, and town halls. They prayed and hugged their families and tried to be brave. In her lab, Dr. Lisa Carter was putting the finishing touches on the most important computer program ever written. It looked like a simple data file, but it was actually a weapon. A weapon designed to turn the aliens' own technology against them. "Will it work?" asked Bobby Chun. Lisa looked at her creation. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "I don't know," she said, "but it's the best chance we have." At the Pentagon, Admiral Ben Parker was coordinating the final preparations. Every human ship had been equipped with Dr. Carter's program. If the aliens took the bait, the program would spread through their computer network like a disease. "Sir," said Colonel Rodriguez, "we're getting reports from all over the world. People are ready. Ready for what? Ready to fight." Ben nodded. It was what he had hoped to hear. Humanity might be outgunned, but they weren't going to go down without a fight. As the deadline approached, President Claire Thompson prepared to give the most important speech of her life. The aliens were waiting for an answer. The whole world was watching. She walked to the podium and looked directly into the camera. Behind her, the flags of every nation on Earth stood side by side. "People of Earth," she said, "and people of the galaxy who might be listening. Today, we were asked to choose between freedom and slavery, between standing tall and kneeling down, between being human and being something less." She paused, letting her words sink in. Our answer is simple. We choose to stand. We choose to fight. We choose to be human. The transmission ended. Around the world, people cheered and cried and held each other close. They knew what was coming next. In space, the alien ships began to move. The war for Earth was about to begin. But Jake Morrison and his crew were ready. They had a plan, and they had something the aliens didn't expect. They had hoped that the battle for humanity's future was about to start. The alien attack began at exactly midnight Earth time. Jake Morrison watched from his ship as thousands of small alien craft poured out of the big vessels like angry wasps from a nest. They flew toward Earth with lights flashing and weapons. "Charging. All ships, this is Admiral Parker," came the voice over the radio. "Execute Operation Last Stand. Good luck, everyone." Jake took a deep breath. This was it. The moment they had been preparing for. "Kate, send the signal to the volunteer ship." Kate Sullivan's hands shook as she pressed the button. Somewhere in the fleet, Captain Tony Miller and his crew of 12 brave volunteers were about to sacrifice themselves for the chance to save humanity. Miller's ship, the Defender, suddenly lost all power and began drifting toward the alien fleet. It looked like an accident, but it was all part of the plan. Hidden in the ship's computer was Dr. Carter's virus, disguised as normal ship data. "They're taking the bait," Kate reported. 2 alien ships are moving to capture the Defender." Jake watched as the alien vessels surrounded Miller's ship. Bright blue beams shot out and pulled the human ship into the belly of one of the larger alien craft. Captain Miller and his crew were now prisoners, but they had done their job. The virus was inside the alien network. On Earth, the real battle was just beginning. The aliens had expected to find cities full of scared people, ready to surrender. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Humanity had vanished. Colonel Danny Walsh crouched in a tunnel deep underground New York City. Around him, a team of fighters waited for his signal. They had been preparing for this moment for months, digging tunnels and hiding weapons all over the city. "Remember," Danny whispered to his team, "we're not trying to win battles. We're trying to buy time. Hit them hard, then disappear." Above them, alien ships landed in Times Square. Soldiers came out of the ships, tall creatures covered in metal armor. They looked around at the empty city, confused. This wasn't what usually happened when they conquered a world. Danny smiled grimly. "That's right," he thought. "We're not like the others." The first alien patrol walked past the hidden entrance to the subway tunnel. Danny waited until they were directly overhead, then triggered the explosives his team had placed weeks ago. The street collapsed, taking 5 alien soldiers with it. Before the aliens could react, Danny and his team were gone, moving through the tunnels like ghosts. They had struck the first blow in what would become the longest war in human history. In Washington, D.C., President Claire Thompson was in a bunker so deep that it felt like being buried alive. But she wasn't hiding. She was coordinating the resistance. On screens all around her, she could see reports from every major city on Earth. "London reports successful first strike," said her aide, a young man named Steve Parks. "So do Tokyo, Moscow, and Beijing. The aliens are confused. They've never faced anything like this before." Claire nodded. Dr. Carter's plan was working. The aliens were used to fighting armies and governments. They didn't know how to fight an entire population. That had gone underground. "What about the space battle?" she asked. "Admiral Parker's fleet is holding its own," Steve replied. "But we're losing ships fast. We can't keep this up for long." Claire knew he was right. The space battle was a distraction, designed to keep the aliens busy while the real plan unfolded. But every ship they lost meant brave people dying for the cause. In space, Jake Morrison was fighting the battle of his life. His ship dodged and weaved between alien vessels, firing missiles and laser beams. His crew worked like a machine, every person doing their job perfectly. "Direct hit on the enemy cruiser," shouted Kate Sullivan. "They're falling back." Jake felt a moment of pride, but it didn't last long. For every alien ship they damaged, 2 more took its place. Humanity was brave, but they were still vastly outnumbered. "Sir," said his weapons officer, a man named Rick Davis, "we're down to our last missiles, and the main laser is overheating." Jake looked at the tactical display. Half of Earth's fleet was gone. The other half was barely hanging on. But they had done their job. They had bought time for the people on the ground. "All ships, this is Morrison," he broadcast. "Fall back to defensive positions around Earth. We've done what we came to do." On the alien command ship, the Arbiter was having the worst day of his very long life. Nothing was going according to plan. The humans were supposed to be cowering in their cities, begging for mercy. Instead, they were fighting back with a fury that shocked him. "Report," he commanded his aide, a smaller crystal being. "We have taken heavy casualties, Your Eminence. The humans are using tactics we have never seen before. They appear and disappear like spirits. Our scans show empty cities, but attacks are coming from everywhere." The Arbiter's blue eyes flashed with anger. "Impossible. We have conquered 47 worlds. We know how to break a species." "Yes, Your Eminence, but the humans are different." Different. That was the word that haunted the Arbiter. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never met a species that fought back like this. Most species surrendered when they saw the size of the hegemony fleet. The few that resisted were quickly crushed by overwhelming force. But the humans weren't acting like a defeated people. They were acting like they had a plan. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was in her hidden laboratory, watching her computer screens. With growing excitement, the virus was working better than she had hoped. It had infected not just the alien ship that captured Captain Miller, but had spread to dozens of other vessels. "Bobby, look at this," she said to her assistant. "The virus is copying alien data and sending it back to us. We're learning everything about their technology." Bobby Chun stared at the screen in amazement. Their weapons, their shields, their communication systems. It's all here. "More than that," Lisa said. "Look at this file. It's a complete list of every world in the hegemony, hundreds of them. And look at the status reports." Bobby read the data, and his eyes widened. "They're all marked as pacified or subdued, but some of them have notes about occasional incidents and minor disturbances." Lisa smiled. "They're not as peaceful as the aliens thought. The conquered worlds are still fighting, even after all these years. They're just waiting for someone to show them how." At the Pentagon, Admiral Ben Parker was getting reports from all over the world. The ground war was going better than expected. The aliens were powerful, but they were confused and disorganized. They had never faced an enemy that refused to fight fair. "Sir," said Colonel Rodriguez, "we're getting strange readings from the alien fleet. Some of their ships are losing power. Others are flying in circles." Ben looked at the tactical display. Several alien vessels were indeed behaving strangely. They were drifting off course or moving in random patterns. "It's working," he said quietly. Dr. Carter's virus is spreading through their network." But even as he spoke, Ben knew they were still in terrible danger. The aliens had thousands of ships, and humanity had only a few dozen left. The virus was helping, but it wouldn't be enough to win the war. They needed something else. Something that would turn the tide completely. As the first day of the war ended, Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair and looked out at the stars. Half of his friends were dead, and Earth was under attack. But somehow, he felt hopeful. Aliens had expected humans to surrender. Instead, they had found a species that would rather die fighting than live in chains. And that made all the difference. The war was just beginning, but Jake knew something the aliens didn't. Humanity had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had built civilizations and explored space and reached for the stars. They were not going to be conquered. Not today, not ever. The battle for Earth continued, but the real war was just getting started. 3 months had passed since the war began, and everything had changed. The aliens still controlled the skies above Earth, but they no longer controlled the ground. Humanity had turned their entire planet into a fortress with hidden tunnels and secret bases everywhere. Jake Morrison was no longer just a ship captain. He was now Admiral Morrison, leader of what remained of Earth's space fleet. His ships had been rebuilt using alien technology that Dr. Carter's team had stolen through the virus. They were faster, stronger, and deadlier than anything humans had ever built before. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," said Kate Sullivan, who was now his second in command. "Mars base has successfully fought off another alien attack. The lunar colonies are holding strong too." Jake nodded. The aliens had made a big mistake when they focused all their attention on Earth. They had forgotten that humans had spread to other worlds too. Now those colonies were fighting back, hitting alien supply lines and communication centers. "What about the signal from the hegemony worlds?" Jake asked. Kate smiled. "Getting stronger every day. Dr. Carter's broadcasts are reaching more systems all the time. The conquered species are starting to remember what freedom looks like." On Earth, Colonel Danny Walsh was leading a meeting of resistance fighters in the ruins of what used to be Chicago. The city looked like a war zone, with burned buildings and broken streets. But underground, humanity was thriving. "We've got reports from resistance cells on 12 different worlds," Danny told the group. "The aliens are having to send troops to put down rebellions instead of focusing on us." A woman named Rachel Kelly, who led the Detroit resistance, raised her hand. "What about the new weapons Dr. Carter promised us?" Danny grinned. "They're ready. We've reverse-engineered alien plasma rifles and shield generators. Every resistance cell will have them by the end of the week." The room buzzed with excitement. For months, they had been fighting with human weapons against alien technology. Now the playing field was getting more even. In her hidden laboratory, Dr. Lisa Carter was working on something that would change the war forever. The virus had given her complete access to alien computer systems, and she had discovered something amazing. "Bobby, look at this," she said to her assistant. "The aliens' neural control implants. The ones they use to keep conquered species obedient. I think I can reverse them." Bobby Chun studied the data. "You mean turn them off?" "Better than that. I think I can reprogram them. Instead of making people obedient, we can make them remember who they used to be." Lisa had been working on this for weeks. The neural implants were how the hegemony controlled billions of beings across the galaxy. If she could break that control, entire worlds would rebel at once. "How do we deliver the program?" Bobby asked. Lisa pointed to another screen. "Through their own communication network. The virus has given us access to every hegemony system. We can send the program to every implant in the galaxy at the same time." On the alien command ship, the Arbiter was facing the worst crisis of his long career. Reports of rebellion were coming in from dozens of worlds. Species that had been peaceful for centuries were suddenly fighting back with a fury that terrified him. "Your Eminence," his aide reported, "the Korathi system has gone completely dark. We've lost contact with all our forces there. The Arbiters." Crystal form flickered with anger. "Send reinforcements." "We don't have any, sir. Every ship is needed here or at another trouble spot. The humans have turned the entire galaxy against us." The Arbiter couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were just one small world. How could they cause so much trouble? "Show me the tactical display," he commanded. The screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony worlds, but many of them were flashing or had gone dark completely. The humans had somehow inspired a galactic revolution. "How many worlds are in open rebellion?" the Arbiter asked. 47, Your Eminence. "The same number of worlds we destroyed to build our empire." The Arbiter felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans weren't just fighting for their own world. They were fighting for every world the hegemony had conquered. Back on Earth, President Claire Thompson was in a secure bunker, coordinating the global resistance. The war had changed her. She was thinner now, with gray streaks in her hair, but her eyes burned with determination. "The European cells report success in London and Paris," said her aide Steve Parks. "The Asian resistance has taken back most of Tokyo. The aliens are retreating to their landing sites." Claire nodded. The tide was turning. Slowly but surely. Humanity was pushing the aliens back. "What about Dr. Carter's project?" she asked. "Ready for deployment," Steve replied. "She just needs your authorization." Claire looked at the authorization codes on her desk. With these, Dr. Carter could activate the neural implant reversal program. Billions of beings across the galaxy would suddenly remember their freedom. "Do it," she said. Dr. Carter received the authorization and immediately began the upload. The program spread through the alien network like wildfire, reaching every hegemony world in minutes. On a distant planet called Korathi Prime, a being named Vex was working in a crystal mine. When the program hit his neural implant, for the first time in 300 years, he remembered his real name. He remembered his family. He remembered the day the hegemony ships had come and enslaved his people. Vex looked at the alien guards and felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. Rage. All across the galaxy, the same thing was happening. Billions of beings were remembering who they used to be. The hegemony's empire was crumbling from within. Jake Morrison was on the bridge of his flagship when the reports started coming in. Alien ships were losing power all over the galaxy. Some were being destroyed by their own crews. Others were simply abandoning their posts and fleeing. "Sir," Kate Sullivan reported, "we're getting surrender signals from 6 alien vessels." "They want to join us," Jake smiled. "Accept their surrender. And Kate, send them a message. Tell them that humans don't conquer. We liberate." In the depths of space, the hegemony's Supreme Council was meeting for the first time in 1,000 years. 12 ancient beings, each representing a different conquered species, had ruled the galaxy through fear and force. Now their empire was falling apart. "The humans must be stopped," said the Arbiter. "They are a disease spreading through our empire." "Perhaps," said another council member, "a being of pure energy. But they are also something we have never encountered before. A species that fights not just for themselves, but for others." The Arbiter's crystal form glowed with fury. "I will not let one small world destroy everything we have built." But deep down, he knew it was too late. The humans had done something the hegemony had never imagined possible. They had given the galaxy hope. On Earth, the aliens were retreating to their ships. The ground war was over, and humanity had won. But the real war was just beginning. Colonel Danny Walsh stood in Times Square, watching alien ships lift off into the sky. The city was in ruins, but his people were free. And more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that the hegemony could be beaten. "What now?" asked one of his fighters. Danny looked up at the stars. "Now we take the fight to them. We don't stop until every world is free." The war for Earth was ending. The war for the galaxy was just beginning. Jake Morrison knew that humanity would never be the same. They had started this war as a single world fighting for survival. They were ending it as the leaders of a galactic revolution. The aliens had demanded that humans kneel. Instead, humans had taught the galaxy to stand. That made all the difference. The final battle began not with explosions or laser beams, but with a simple message broadcast across the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Carter had spent 6 months perfecting it, and now it was ready. "People of the galaxy," the message began, "you have been slaves for too long. Today, you remember who you are. Today, you are free." The message was transmitted through every hegemony communication system at once. Within minutes, it reached every world in the Empire. And with it came the final version of Lisa's neural implant program. On 1,000 worlds, billions of beings suddenly remembered their true selves. The hegemony's control shattered like glass. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his flagship as alien ships across the galaxy began turning against each other. Former slaves attacked their masters. Rebellion spread like wildfire through the hegemony fleet. "Sir," Kate Sullivan reported, "we're getting surrender messages from over half the alien fleet. The other half is fighting each other." Jake nodded. This was the moment they had all been working toward. The hegemony wasn't just losing the war. It was destroying itself from within. "Send a message to all hegemony forces," Jake ordered. "Surrender now, and we'll show mercy. Keep fighting and face the consequences." On Earth, Colonel Danny Walsh was leading the final assault on the last alien stronghold. The fortress was built on what used to be the island of Manhattan, and it was the hegemony's last foothold on humanity's home world. "Remember," Danny told his fighters as they prepared for the attack, "we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every world those things have conquered." The assault began at dawn. Human fighters, armed with stolen alien weapons, stormed the fortress from every direction. The alien defenders fought back desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Within hours, the fortress fell. The last hegemony forces on Earth were either dead or captured. Humanity's home world was finally free. In space, the real drama was happening around the hegemony's capital world. The Supreme Council's fortress hung in orbit above the planet, protected by the most powerful ships in the alien fleet. But even those ships were not immune to the rebellion spreading through their ranks. Admiral Morrison's human fleet approached the fortress, but they were not alone. Ships from dozens of liberated worlds flew beside them. The galaxy's former slaves had become an army of liberation. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Liberation Fleet," Jake broadcast to the fortress. "You are surrounded. Surrender now, and we will guarantee your safety. Refuse, and we will destroy you." For long minutes, there was no response. Then, slowly, the fortress's shields began to power down. Inside the fortress, the Arbiter faced the end of everything he had worked for. The Supreme Council was in chaos. Half the members had fled, and the other half were arguing about whether to surrender or fight to the death. "This is impossible," the Arbiter said to his aide. "We ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. How can one small world destroy us?" His aide, a small crystal being, looked at him sadly. "Because they didn't fight like the others, Your Eminence. They fought for something bigger than themselves." The Arbiter stared out the window at the fleet surrounding them. Human ships flew. next to vessels from worlds he had conquered centuries ago. The slaves had become warriors, and it was all because of one species that refused to kneel. "Your Eminence," his aide continued, "perhaps it is time to consider that we were wrong. Perhaps ruling through fear was never the answer." Before the Arbiter could respond, the fortress shook as boarding pods attached to its hull. Human soldiers, led by Colonel Danny Walsh himself, were coming aboard. Danny and his team moved through the fortress corridors like ghosts. They had studied the alien technology for months, and they knew exactly where to go. The Supreme Council Chamber was at the heart of the fortress, protected by the strongest shields and the deadliest weapons the hegemony possessed. But those defenses were designed to stop ships and armies, not small teams of determined humans who had learned to think like their enemies. "Remember," Danny whispered to his team as they approached the chamber, "we want them alive if possible. Dead martyrs are harder to deal with than living prisoners." The chamber doors exploded inward. Danny and his soldiers rushed inside, weapons ready. They found the Arbiter standing alone in the center of the room, his crystal form dim and cracked with age. "I am the Arbiter of the hegemony," he said in a voice like breaking glass. "I demand to be treated according to the laws of war." Danny looked at the alien leader who had demanded that humanity kneel. He was smaller than Danny had expected and very old. For a moment, Danny almost felt sorry for him. "You'll be treated fairly," Danny said. "That's more than you gave to the worlds you conquered." President Claire Thompson stood in the ruins of the White House, watching the news reports from across the galaxy. World after world was declaring its freedom from the hegemony. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was collapsing in a matter of days. "It's over," said her aide Steve Parks. "The last hegemony strongholds have surrendered. The galaxy is free." Claire nodded, but she didn't smile. Freedom was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, building something better. "What about the hegemony worlds themselves?" she asked. "The species that actually ran the empire?" "Most of them are asking for mercy," Steve replied. "They say they were forced to conquer others to survive." Claire thought about that. The hegemony had been built on fear, but maybe some of its members had been victims too. The challenge now was to break the cycle of violence and create something new. Dr. Lisa Carter was in her laboratory, working on her most important project yet. The neural implants that had enslaved billions of beings could be removed, but the process was dangerous. She was developing a way to safely free every person in the galaxy. "How many do we estimate?" asked Bobby Chun. "At least 50 billion beings across 800 worlds," Lisa replied. "Maybe more. The hegemony kept very detailed records." Bobby whistled softly. "That's a lot of people to help." "That's why we're going to need help from every liberated world," Lisa said. "This isn't just a human project anymore. It's a galactic one." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at a world he had never seen before. It was called Korathi Prime, and it had been one of the first worlds conquered by the hegemony 3 centuries ago. Now it was free, and its people were rebuilding their civilization with help from humans and dozens of other species. It was becoming a model for how the galaxy could work together. "Sir," Kate Sullivan said, "we're getting a message from Earth. President Thompson wants to speak with you." Jake smiled. Claire had been elected as the first president of the Galactic Liberation Council, a new organization that was trying to keep the peace between hundreds of different worlds and species. "Jake," Claire's voice came through the speakers, "how's the Korathi project going?" "Better than expected," Jake replied. "They've rebuilt their capital city and established contact with 17 other liberated worlds. They're even sending aid to worlds that are still struggling." "Good, because we've got a new problem. Some of the former hegemony species want to form their own empire. They say they need to conquer others to survive. Jake sighed. He had been afraid of this. Breaking the hegemony was only the first step. Building something better was much harder. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Talk to them. Show them there's another way. You've become a symbol, Jake. When you speak, people listen." Jake looked out at Korathi Prime. A year ago, this world had been a slave planet. Now it was thriving. Children played in parks that had once been prison camps. Artists created beauty where there had once been only fear. "I'll do what I can," he said. The Arbiter sat in his cell on a human prison ship, staring out at the stars. He was being taken to a new kind of court, where representatives from every liberated world would decide his fate. He expected to be executed. He deserved it, after all the suffering he had caused. But the humans had surprised him again. Instead of revenge, they wanted justice. Instead of conquest, they offered partnership. A guard opened his cell door. It was Colonel Danny Walsh, the human who had captured him. "Time to go," Danny said. "Your trial starts in an hour." "Why?" the Arbiter asked. "Why didn't you just kill?" "Me?" Danny looked at him for a long moment. "Because that's what you would have done. We're trying to be better than that." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Representatives from hundreds of worlds testified about the hegemony's crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. But when it came time for sentencing, something unexpected happened. "We find the Arbiter guilty of crimes against the galaxy," said the chief judge, a being from one of the first worlds the hegemony had conquered. "But we sentence him not to death, but to life in service to those he harmed." The Arbiter would spend the rest of his life helping to rebuild the worlds he had destroyed. It was a punishment worse than death for someone who had lived only for power, but it was also a chance for redemption. 5 years after the war ended, humanity had become something no one expected. They were not conquerors or rulers. They were teachers, showing the galaxy how to live without fear. Dr. Lisa Carter had successfully removed the neural implants from over 40 billion beings. Most of them chose to stay on their homeworlds and rebuild their old civilizations. Others joined the growing network of free worlds T,